I mean, it's right past. We can get started, because the interesting part after is also this is a half an hour session. There's another half an hour session just after this one. Here, in case you don't know where you are, we're going to talk about how to not deploy a Speckle server / deploy a Speckle server correctly, and also why deploy a Speckle server. If you've been active on our forum recently, you will notice that there's quite a few questions around various infrastructural misconfigurations. And we want to try and maybe show some ways in which things can be done so that we at least are able to guide in the right direction. And there's actually a much cooler session after this one. So this one's a session mostly for geeks that like terminals. And SSHing and droplets and so on. After this session, there's actually none other than Easy, who just typed an emoji in the conversation, and she's going to share together with Gergő as well, actually, a much more colorful application of code. So from what I've seen, it's actually Python, graphs, all sorts of crazy stuff. So we'll get started now. We have this slide just to remind ourselves that we should introduce ourselves as well. So Gergő, go ahead.
Thank you, Dimitrie. I'm Gergő. I'm a software engineer at Speckle, and I'm mostly focusing on the backend / servery stuff. So that's why I'm here.
and Gergő has the difficult task of delivering the actual live demos. So guys, fingers crossed. We need some good energy. We have with us as well Kristi. He's our backup.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Kristi.
I'm Christian, software engineer at Speckle, with background in programming and DevOps mostly, and security.
Yeah, so if things fail, it's most likely our fault, not Kristi's. So he's trying to, well, at least when it comes to me, for sure, he's trying to tell me not to do stupid things anymore, like connecting straight to the production database, things like this. And I'm Dimitrie. I started Speckle in 2015. So yeah, I should take greater care. I think you should know this by now already. We've added it just in case there's new people who just parachuted in. So what is Speckle? Speckle has three main components. There's Speckle Web, which is what we affectionately call quite a lot of things, as you'll see. It includes the server, the front end, and various other applications. There's a bunch of app connectors, which integrate natively with things like Blender, Rhino, Revit, soon ArchiCAD, soon SketchUp as well. That actually, these clients are the ones that are at the base of our interoperability offering, and they're the ones that are actually pushing data to Speckle and pulling data from Speckle. And then, of course, all these things are built on what we call our development platform. There's SDKs and APIs. These are things that we develop first, and then we dog food themselves to build all of the above, the app connectors and the Speckle Web. So what is Speckle Web? And if I'm not mistaken, I shamelessly stole these slides from Claire. So Claire, thank you, in case you're watching. Speckle Web is like the product overview of Speckle Web, that it's essentially a dashboard where you can see all the data that you've pushed in Speckle. Then, of course, things would not be complete without a sexy 3D viewer, which we're working hard to actually improve in terms of performance. This is where you can actually visualize your data. So if you go to GitHub, that's where you can see the raw code behind your project. This is the equivalent space in Speckle where you can actually inspect the data that you have in there. And of course, there's the geeky stuff. So there's APIs. There's actually, we expose the server per se, exposes two APIs. Exposes a GraphQL API that's for kind of the light operations and subscriptions for live notifications. So creating commits, sharing things with other people, creating new streams, deleting streams, all this stuff is handled via the GraphQL API. And we have a couple of REST endpoints that are actually doing the heavy-duty uploading and downloading of things, as well as diffing. As a kind of geeky remark, the server is just a storage layer. So this is kind of a quick insight into the larger picture around the Speckle technical ecosystem, so to say. So the server itself is actually one piece of this ecosystem that can actually be replaced. So if you actually decide our server sucks balls, you can just write up a new one from scratch that doesn't use Postgres or whatever. And as long as it respects the forms that are implemented in our transport interface, you're good to go. But today, we're going to talk about the components of the server. So now over to Gergő.
Thank you, Dim. So just to kick us off on the server discussion, this is what a very quick overview looks like for the components of what we call the Speckle server, right? So it consists of a Speckle frontend that is served through the ingress, through which we communicate, right? And that one is responsible for handing over all the data towards the Speckle server and all the other backend applications that will be handling the different parts of the functionalities. Why this is important is that we are constantly adding new services to this, and the number of microservices here will constantly grow over time.
Yeah, and actually, now I realize there's actually one missing from this diagram. I didn't realize, but this is because it's made it into master, but only into our kind of tester release, unreleased to the general population version, which is the IFC import service and the file uploading service. So there's actually one service missing as of 2 weeks ago. Anyway, sorry for the interruption.
That was this is a no spoilers diagram, right?
Indeed.
So what this enables us to do is basically scale the services independently of each other, and so on and so on. Be very responsive of our load, but what this comes with a cost is that you need to deploy all of these and properly configure them, right? So this is what this session is about, how you should do it, and what are our preferred strategies for deploying these components. And we basically support a few of them, depending on your workload and depending on your use case, right? Going from easiest to most complex, maybe. We do have our managed deployments, which speckle.xyz is free to use for everyone. And then we offer custom managed deployments as well. That's the easiest, right? Because that's the least involvement. If we go up a bit higher, then we offer a one-click image currently on DigitalOcean, which is what we'll probably see in the demo, how easy it is to configure. It usually doesn't take more than 5 minutes to get going with. And it gives you a good basis of running a Speckle server for yourself. What it doesn't give you is a ton of options and flexibility, and that's where our Docker container / Docker containers based approach comes in, which utilizes Docker Compose, which we will also see in the demo. This will give you a bit more flexibility on how you deploy the services and how you manage them. And you can even push this even further a bit and put everything into Kubernetes and do all the nice orchestration stuff that Kubernetes gives you. But we will not go into that today because that's a bigger topic.
Definitely. This is how we run our production instance, and this is how we actually run as well, kind of manage deployments. And this is a good time to, insert a little advertising break to say that, if you need your own custom deployment of a server, we're here to help you. We've assembled a list, or actually Gergő and Kristi assembled a list of some of the most common pitfalls, or like the how not to deploy Speckle server section. And I'll let Gergő run through some of these.
Right, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the smaller letters. This is up for you guys to read, and if you have questions, then do feel free to ask them regarding any of this. But what you saw from the number of services, one of the biggest pitfall is that you choose a deployment strategy, which is hard to update or upgrade. And we do tend to move fast. Try not to break so much stuff, but we are moving fast. So you have to keep up with your deployment as well. So you have to choose a strategy that enables that. All of our preferred strategies that we listed on the previous slides have a way to upgrade quickly, right? Some use case specific stuff on the Nginx is that we are handling a lot of data back and forth from the server, and we are utilizing WebSockets, so you have to act accordingly. And sending this data with unencrypted connections is probably not the best idea. So
it's a bit like early 2000s where anyone could spoof your Wi-Fi traffic. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So they can basically get your Revit models while you are sending them to your server. But yeah, otherwise we try to document everything, and our demo will be based on our docs page. But sometimes environment variables do need some explanation, but we try our best to describe what they mean. And one more, that is, if you are not deploying all the services, the Speckle server is properly functioning with the backend and the front end, with some exceptions, right? So you do have to be wary of not deploying all the services, which we do not recommend.
Yeah, and as an example here, like I was developing locally and I forgot to start the webhook service, actually, which is another service that was missing from the diagram. And I was like, oh my God, why are webhooks not working? This is a massive bug. And actually, no, webhooks were working. I just forgot to start that microservice. Now there's some time for some quick demos. We originally thought, Gergő, we're going to do a poll, but we've already talked like 15 minutes through this. So we might start with a DigitalOcean one-click demo. And then, because we have some slides after this, I'd rather go through as well. And let's see if we get to the vendor independent Docker Compose file.
Sure. Oops, sorry.
Recursion.
Right, so here we go. So I will walk you through a DigitalOcean one-click demo, and this is using my private DigitalOcean account, so nothing is associated with Speckle at this point. To get started, you do need to create a droplet, and you do need a DO account, right, to use this, but you can get all the credits free from all the advertisements, and you can try this for yourself, so it's a good use of the free credits. To get started with a one-click deployment, you have to go to the marketplace, and surprisingly, you have to search for Speckle in the keywords, and it should show up. We only allow a proper sized machine to be selected that should handle the workload of what the Speckle server requires, right? And what else you need to be wary of is that you should choose the region that is probably closely located to your main usage areas, right? So I'm gonna choose Frankfurt here because that's the closest to me, and otherwise, you can also, of course, add your management stuff there and name your deployment properly. And this is basically it from the DO side. We should wait for the instance to start up, and it, depending on how responsive DO is, could take a minute or three. But while that happens, we could probably jump into the compose-based demo if we don't want to wait around.
Let's see, because maybe it's going to be fast, and we might confuse people too much with context switching.
Okay, let's not context switch right now. So two more things missing from having the server properly up and running. One is using our setup script, which will present itself once we once the droplet is in and we log in to manage it. And the other one is deploying a proper TLS certificate, right? And point the DNS server to this. What I have prepared for the demo is that I did add the domain for this demo, which will be connect-oneclick.myname.com. And since the droplet is up now, I'm going to configure it inside in DO that, okay, for this domain, route the traffic to the connect one-click server and add the record. This will basically tell us that this host name points to this public IP address, and everything for this DNS lookup should travel to our one-click deployment server, which is up and running now. So we should be able to log in and complete the
setup.
Right? So you need to go here and don't worry, you guys won't be able to do this. It's tied to my account, but it will be tied to yours as well. So this is the setup script that we provide as a package of the one-click deployment. It will ask you a few questions, which you should copy-paste answer, right? And one thing is that the first question that it asks is to input your domain into which we are deploying this. So I'm copying the domain here and going back to the setup script. Oops. We are not going to configure email at this time, but it's basically copy pasting in 4 more variables. And since the domain is configured, now it's pulling all the Speckle services here. These are done. And they are starting up in the background. In the meantime, we will configure our TLS certificate. For this, you should add a proper email through which Let's Encrypt can reach you in case there is a certificate expiring for you, but it will do its best to auto-renew, right? I'm gonna add my email here. And I've read all the license agreements already, so I can accept them. And now it's setting up the server. Oopsie.
Do we have one of the classic live demo problems?
Yes, we do. Normally the IP address is found for connect-one-click. Which is here. Okay, that's not fun because now I have tried this a few times and this haven't showed up yet. So, but what happened is that the only thing that failed is the TLS certificate configuration. Right, so you can see that the server is up and running, and I can register to this, and when the slides are coming up, I will fix this in the background so you can.
You'll need to click register, Gag.
I need to register, sorry.
Okay, I'll reshare my screen then. I hope it's not going to be green, Mika. Let's see. Let me know if it's green. Because there's also like questions of like why deploy a Speckle server, and this is kind of something we'd want to touch on. There are several reasons why you'd want to deploy a Speckle server. Like I think one of the most important ones that we're trying to push across is that you can have actually federated collaboration going across multiple companies. And this would allow you as well, like each individual company can have their own individual servers where the data sandbox within their own environment, and there's actually nothing touching it. But at the same time, because of Speckle's kind of larger architecture as an ecosystem, you could have like guest access, or you could be invited to a different company's server and actually start pushing curated parts of the data that the other company needs, like, for example, subcontractor or so on, to their own server. And these are scenarios that we've seen happening in real life. Another scenario that we've seen quite often is like, often enough to warrant its own slide, is like capital projects. So I think you've heard Matteo mentioning like some top secret projects, embassies, stuff like this. These usually have like very difficult data residency requirements, to the extent that we've heard of air-gapped deployments of Speckle, in which essentially there's like computers in a room with no wires coming out of that room besides electricity, where Speckle is deployed, and that enabling kind of a collaboration off the grid. But as well, kind of, if the project is large enough, it can warrant its own Speckle server. Now, of course, we've also got like our own, SaaS doesn't stand for software as a service. Nowadays, it stands for Speckle as a service. I mean, that's a very cheesy joke. I apologize. And we do have essentially like our standard plan that we offer. It's our general availability server that's robust, and like it handles high traffic and large loads. And we have quite a stellar record of uptime, no thanks to me, but thanks to Gergő and Kristi. And as well, for custom deployment needs, if you really need them, you can come and chat with us, because we offer like dedicated managed plans in which we take care of all the deployment hassle for you. And then last, I think that kind of concludes our presentation, maybe 5 minutes early. We do have some resources for getting started. So as we said, like our website is speckle.systems, which you probably know about this. The developer guides are on speckle.guide/dev. And there's also our friendly community forum where you can ask us questions. The only caveat there is that it's usually very difficult to ultimately debug remotely other people's deployments. So what we try and do, especially because we need to ask you to send screenshots with potentially, delicate data involved. So we will ask you at one point, if that's not going well, to send us an email and try and figure things out over a more friendly video sharing call. And that's it for us. I hope you enjoy essentially our mission. And of course, everything we've showed you is open source and almost quite well documented. And now we have a bit of time for Q&As, if there are any Qs, and if we have any As as well. Let me look through the chat. There's nothing. I've seen, okay, like if there's anyone in the audience actually really attentively listening, are you aware why is Speckle the coolest? Easy is because you work for Speckle. That's why, because you are actively developing Speckle every single day. So we've seen, like, we actually went for DigitalOcean, for example, with a one-click image, mostly because what does Speckle stand for? That, Mika, it's a very difficult question. I mean, it's not a difficult question. It's, yeah, if I tell you the real story, you won't believe me. It's literally like that. So, so I won't tell the real story, because we started spreading rumors about what Speckle stands for. So like one of the rumors that I liked most was that actually Speckle was the name of a King George III's favorite sheep that he liked petting. You're after some stickers, but actually, Mika, you can get those stickers for free anyway. So if you want to actually just DM us yes, I know that there's a trick. There's always a cheat code, right? Definitely, Jonathan, please, like, we welcome contributions on the origins of Speckle. That's for sure. So Mika and anybody else listening in, if you want free Speckle stickers, DM me, Matteo, or drop us a line on the speckle.community website. And yes, do exactly what Izzy said. Drop your best Speckle origin stories on the forum, which you can find at speckle.community, and we will send you stickers. Yes, this is fun. Like now I'm imagining the actual real life audience. There's also this, in case you haven't done it, go do it, or else we will not send you any stickers. So give us a star on GitHub. And basically this actually concludes our presentation. Unless Gergő figured out the SSL hassle with Let's Encrypt, which I guess by the look on his face, probably it's not. And like in our private chat messages, I see some fucking DigitalOcean, blah, 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 curse words. Nevertheless, if you guys are gonna take this for a spin and it happened, you got the same problem, do let us know, because this is something that we would like to fix as soon as possible.
Of course, that I did figure out. It was the demo preparation that screwed us over, right?
I figured, because you said like you've done it 5 times. I was like, or 6 times. I'm actually shocked DigitalOcean didn't rate limit you in like creating and destroying droplets like 10 times a day. You know? Okay. So now,
as long as you're not doing it 5 times a day, then you should have a Speckle server in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, and now you guys all need to move to the next session, which is Gergő and Izzy showing off some cool Python charts and dashboards and colorful animations. Okay, we'll close this one up and you can go wander across the conference. See you all. I imagine the audience waving hands back now. Cool. Ciao.